Welcome back to Library Choice YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this elegant flounce design. So the flounce runs from the center front area through the shoulder all the way to the sleeve area, and then an we use a crinoline to enhance this flounce. So if this is something you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to make this flange, you need to first get the measurement of where you're going to be placing this. In this case, I'll be placing it from the center front. So here, this is my center front. I'm placing it on this blouse that I already have. So from the center front here, I'm just going to take my tape rule now and measure 2 inches downwards, which is here. So from that 2 inches downward, you can use your free hand, or you just use your cuff and connect it to the tip of your shoulder. That's where your on your armhole area, where your sleeve joins to your shoulder. So now in a curvy way, you can just connect it to that tip. It can be exactly on that tip if you want the flounce to be at the midpoint of your sleeve. That's where the fold point of your sleeve. If you want it to come to the front a bit, you can just come down by maybe 1 inch or 1.5 inches. 1 inch is fine for me from that point. So from that point now, you link it from the 2 inches that you went down from your center front, and you can choose any side you want, and then you connect it like this. Okay, so after connecting it like this, so from there now you take it down all the way to the hem of your sleeve. Okay, so now you can see how this flounce is going to go. It's going to go from your center front one side all the way to your shoulder point, then all the way to your sleeve. So after getting that point, now you take your tape measure and measure that point. So from that point now, I'm measuring it. So this is me getting like the radius for my flounce, how big it's going to be, and I have around 29.5 inches here. So I'm going to set this aside now, and then I'll take my pattern paper. You can actually draft this directly on our fabric, or you can draft it on the pattern paper, but I just want this to be feasible for us, so the white paper is more feasible because the fabric I'm using is quite multicolored and it may not be so feasible. So now I'm going to take this now and then draw like four, like a vertical and an horizontal line, which makes it look like a cardinal point where my flounce is going to rest. Okay, so now I'm going to draw these vertical points, and then on that point now you can just take your tape rule now and get the midpoint of this. So this is around 24.5, so the midpoint is around here. So on that point now you draw another horizontal line. So this is going to be like the starting point for your flounce. Okay, so there are several ways you can get flounce. This is the spiral method. This is just one of the ways you can make your flounce. So from this point here, which is the cardinal point, I'm going to be measuring 1 inch round, and that's going to be serving like my starting point. So now here I'm measuring 1 inch around this, and then I'm going to make it into a circle. Okay, so after getting that point now, you should do many points and make them close together so that you get something really round and perfect. So you just make it into a circle like this. Okay, so after making your circle, remember we have 4 boxes, which is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So in one of the boxes here, you just get you can go outwards here by 1/2 inch, which is here. I hope you can see the point. Then on the second, which is the next one, you get the midpoint of this, or you can just do the 1/2 inch, and then I'll place it here. So here now you need to measure the length of your flounce. That's how long you want the flounce to be. So this is entirely dependent on you. For me, I think I will just make mine around 4 inches long with allowance. You can do 5 inches, you can do 3 inches. This is entirely dependent on you and what you want. So if I have 4 inches here, the next thing now is for me to connect from this point all the way to this 4 inches, and then I'll start marking the 4 inches round. So that's the length of my flounce. So now I'm just going to cut out this flounce first before I shape it. because this is going to need a shaping. You can actually shape it while drafting, but it is easier to do it this way, especially for the beginners amongst us. So I'm just going to continue measuring my 4 inches now, and then I'm going to shape this out later by the time we finish cutting it. So I'm connecting it now. So assist you in connecting it because it may be quite tedious. So I have this curve here. I'm just going to be using it as a guide. Then so from this point here where I went inwards by 5 inches, and then from the half where I started my actual length, I'm just going to connect the two together now, and then I'll continue my measurements. So you can see what I have there. So from there now I'm continuing the 4 inches that I have, and then I'll continue marking it. So make sure you throw any sharp points that you may want to have there. So 4 inches. So I've marked my 4 inches up to here. So this is just me connecting it with my free hand for 4 inches round, and then you continue marking your 4 inches. Okay, so 4 inches is not constant, like I said. You can do more than 4 inches and you can do less. So the next one now, you start marking your 4 inches from where this one stops. So you can see I have 4 inches here, 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches, and then I'll keep marking it round like that, and then I'm going to connect it. So I've marked up to that point. This is just me connecting the points that I've marked. So here now I'm going to continue marking my 4 inches. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'll continue marking my 4 inches like this till I have my actual measurement of 29.5. Remember, we measure 29.5. But in this case now, I'm not going to be cutting exactly 29.5 inches because this flounce I want to pleat it. So I'll be adding extra few inches. You can add up to extra 5 inches or 10 inches depending on the amount of pleat that you want. So I was measuring 5 inches before. That's a mistake. The actual inches that I'm using for my flounce is 4 inches. Okay, 4 inches. So now I think I'm okay with what I have here. Okay, so I just want to check the amount of flounce that I have here by just measuring around it to see if it will be enough for me. So I think I'm working with, maybe I'll add 29. I have 29.5. I'll be adding around 10 inches to that, and that's going to give me around 39.5 or 40 inches. So which is here, which I think is fine for me. Okay, so now this is my actual flounce, but I'm not going to be cutting it yet because I want to cut it together with my fabric to make it easier for me. So this is the fabric I'm working with. I'm using this fabric as both my main fabric and my lining. It's an Ankara fabric. So now I'm just going to be putting this fabric on fold. So putting it on fold means I'm cutting both the lining of this flounce and the main fabric together. And like I said, this fabric is going to serve as my lining and my main fabric. So I'm putting it on fold now, and then I'll place this flounce on it. Okay, so the fabric is on fold now, and then I'm just placing this on it. So you can actually pin this because this is just right side facing right side, so that by the time you want to sew it to turn your lining with your main fabric, it will be easy for you. So now I'm just going to bring my pins now, and then I'm going to pin this on my flounce to make the work easy for me. So now this is just me putting my pins around this at strategic points so that it can hold this for me before I start to cut it. Okay, so after pinning this now, I'm just going to take my scissors, and then I'll first of all cut off the excesses around it. So the ones that does not just fit into this paper are the excesses that I have, which I don't need. So I'm just cutting around them before I start to cut my actual flounce. So all these that I have outside this paper are on the excesses, and they are not useful for me, so I'm just trimming them off. Then once I have just my paper I'll start to cut out the flounce. So all the excesses have been chopped off now, so I'll start to cut from here. So here now I'm cutting my actual flounce of 4 inches. So you can see the way we are just slashing it. And this is me cutting both my lining and main fabric together. So you can see. So I'm just going to cut around it. Okay, so remember I said I'm using 40 inches, so I have enough. I have 40 inches here. I just added excess because I still want to use it at some other part. So I have my 40 inches for my actual flounce, which is around here. So I'm just going to stop my flounce here and then leave this aside because I still want to use this later. So now this is the flounce that I have. This is the flounce that I'm working with. So now the next thing is to remove my paper so that I'll be left with just my fabric. So as I'm removing the paper, I'm replacing the pin. So you can go ahead and add an interface to this. You can use paper stay or some soft gum stay, or you can also use a crinoline. So I think I'll be using just an inch crinoline to it so that I can just give me that wavy effect. But this is not compulsory if you are using an Ankara that is very simple. If you are not using a crinoline, it is important for you to add maybe an interface into this. So once I have this, now the next thing is for me to shape it at the hem, which is this two side, because I don't want it just standing straight like this. Okay, so on this point now I'll just take my tip and then I'll measure on this I think I can just go in by maybe 4 to 5 or 6 inches. So if I'm going in by 6 inches, so from that point I'm just going to slant it and connect to the to this starting point here. So I'm doing this for both the two ends, this and this. So I'll just be cutting it together. I'm just placing them on each other like this, and then I'm going to slash that point open. Okay, so from here now I'll take my fabric scissors and then I'll slash it open from there so that I can have something tapered, because I don't want it just big like that. So you just blend it well, and then once you do that you have something like this. You can see the shape is no longer sharp. You have something like this. So now I'm going to replace this and put my pin there. So like I said, if you want to put a gum stay at this point, you take this to your ironing table and then fuse your gum stay to it. But I'll just be adding this 1 inch crinoline on it because I don't have a gum stay presently. So now I'll take it to the sewing machine now and sew round this so that I can neatly turn it out, and then I'll add my crinoline to it. Okay, so now I've sewn it and you can see I sew my crinoline to it also. So now the next thing I'm going to do now is to open this up, and then you can top stitch on this, on the lining part like this, so that your crinoline can lie flat for you, or you can just iron it and then apply lots of pressure so that you have something really neat. So there's other ways you can actually apply your crinoline without sewing it like this, and I already have tutorial on that on the channel, so you may want to check that out also. That is easier. You can do that using your hemming gum. So now after turning it out, the next thing is for us to close this upper part also, because you want it to be neatly finished. So now you can take this to the serger and serge it, or you can just fold this in like this and then top stitch on it so that you have something neat. Whichever one you choose is fine, just make sure it is neat enough. So I'll go ahead now and do this on my sewing machine and bring it back to show us. Okay, so now you can see that it has been neatly sewn both on the upper part and on the lower part. So you want it to be this neat. You can also weave it like I said. I just folded this in and then top stitched on it. Now like I said, I'm doing this length because this is just a tutorial. You can make yours longer than this. So once your flounce is ready like this, you just take your blouse or wherever it is you want to add this flounce to, and then you can actually use your hand to tack it. So you see this tiny edge is very important, so you start placing it from here. Okay, so you can actually tack it like I said, and then you sew it, or you sew it. So if you want to sew it using a sewing machine, because you've closed your sleeve, it may be a bit difficult. So what you just need to do is to lose the seams, your side seam and your underarm seam from your sleeve, and then by the time you lose it, it's going to open up for you so that you can easily take it under the machine and sew, because it's going to be easier. So now, because I added few extra inches to this, as I'm sewing it, I'm just going to pleat it along the way so that it can fit into this. But I highly recommend that when you're doing yours, you should maybe add a stay or something, because this fabric that I'm working with is quite soft, so it may be a bit challenging, especially if you added crinoline to it, so that your crinoline is, the Ankara will not just be controlling your crinoline, and it may give you the effect that you don't want. But this is still going to work for me, so I'm just going to follow what I have here. So now I'll take it to the machine now and sew it, and then I'll bring it back to show us. Okay, so I just held this with pins now, as you can see. So I have pins holding it, and it will just stand like this. So I followed the chalk mark that I have there, and then at intervals I pleated it so that it can just fit into that space that I left for it. So now I'll go ahead now and sew it with my machine, then we'll take it to the mannequin so that we'll see what we have. But from here now, you can see what our flounce is looking like. So in order, because I'm not tacking this, in order for it to be easy for me to sew, I just decided to open it up on the underarm like I said, and then on my side seam. So once you open it up, it's going to open up completely for you now, so you can easily sew this now with your sewing machine. And then by the time you finish sewing it, you're going to take it up, take it together again, and then close up your side seam. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it, and this is what we have. And then I top stitched on it. So I sew it like this, then I top stitched on it so that it can stand for me like this. So this is what it's looking like. This is the center front, so it just goes from the center front through the shoulder and then all the way to the center part of the sleeve. So now the next thing now is to take this to the mannequin so that we'll see what we have. Okay, so this is what the flounce design look like. You can see that it comes from the center front, and then trimming the starting point just make it start in a narrow way like that. Then it just progresses all the way to the shoulder area, and then it comes down to the sleeve area like this. So just like we imagined it to be, and then I added pleats around it. If you don't want to add any pleats, you just need to use your exact measurement for it. So you can see this is just beautiful, and it just brought this plain dress to life. Instead of it just being blank like that, it just beautifies it and make it more lovely. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed this, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.